going to kick off yet. I always find it's easier to warm the room up. So, are you guys regulars at games conferences? Have you done the pocket? Oh yeah, you too. You go cow. Are you guys regulars at conferences like this? Or is this a new thing to you, first time? Yeah, you actually meeting human beings who also make games. Do you feel like you're not the weirdo in the room anymore? Do you have a nice feeling, I think? I like being the weirdo in the room, by the way. Hence why I feel like I can get away with wearing a hat. It kind of reminds me, grounds me. My hat grounds me. It shows me I'm a Brit. But the joke of this hat, by the way, is you know it's a short top hat? It's because it's the working class top hat. It's actually true, literally. Victorian working class people had shorter top hats. That's the truism. It's only a joke that only I know. So I sit there chuckling to myself when people think I'm a toss. Because I talk like I'm from the BBC. And I always have, even though I lived in March in Cambridgeshire, and anyone who knows that area knows the Etobicoke bit lake next, no Croydon Lake. I can say that because I grew up there. It's not intended as a slur. I have great friends and family who sound like that. However, I never found myself affinity for that particular location. So, as J.J. Cale from the Developers said, small towns, the only good thing about small town is you hate it and you know how to leave. So I ended up going outside. I have been a resident in Norwich from age 5 to 8. We were joking earlier that the place where I had my 8th birthday party, in fact Robbie knows this story as well, where I had my 8th birthday party called Captain America's, still exists. Oh yeah. This was, a scary thing is, we were just chatting, it's like, that would have been 1977. Yes, I'm that old. It's not just a white beard, 3 stripes. It's also a white beard, 3 stripes. It's also from game making. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to kick off for a couple of minutes, but I want you, hopefully, you're going to get from me doing this warm-up bit that I'm intending to get you all to talk to me, and I'm not too scary. I am very loud. I can also be very quiet. Little trick there, if you're ever making a talk, speak quietly, and everyone pays attention. It's a really, really weird thing. Anyway, so I can go on about that. If you don't know my background, I'm as old as the hills. I've been working on games since 1998. Anyone not born before 1998? Yeah, there's a few here. I'm that old. I've got a few good things to say still. I'm not dead yet. I actually did my first ever game pitch in, I think it was 1987. I was age 18. I took my game idea with my 2 mates and we pitched to, I think it was Rainbird, which was owned by British Telecom at the time. We got it fantastic, they loved it, great, come back when you built it. Which anyone who's still getting that response knows exactly what that means. You're not getting any money out of them. And actually my coder friend, who was a genius, ended up writing Oracle's payroll platform. So if you've ever worked for a big company and they use Oracle, it's his fault. I will start properly. So I'm Oscar Clark. I am the CEO of Fundamentally Games. We are a living game publisher. That means we're focused on being a modern kind of publisher that actually uses PC and mobile games properly to create experiences that players love, keep falling in love with, want to keep playing, and hopefully also want to keep paying for. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with pair of front games. They're great. There's a purpose. There's a delight in having that beautiful nugget of experience that has a start, middle, and end. That just happens to not be the kind of games I'm good at doing. So, and by the way, it's not just me. It's about 12 of us. We have announced a PC game called Faithful, a mobile game called Untitled. We're about to announce another PC game called Gladiators, and another mobile game called Rare Pets. So we're basically a new team doing some cool stuff, but I literally wrote board games as a service, so it's not like we're new to it. Why am I sitting here and I'm going to talk about validating your game ideas? Because I have investors who say, this is an interesting game, should I sign it? Should I give them money? And I have to help them work out if you should sign it. And by the way, as a publisher, guess what we have to do? We have to validate if your game idea is any good. But there's another side to this, another angle of this, which is, as a creator, I spend a lot of time trying to help other creators think about how to turn the thing that they love into a commercial operation. So there's nothing wrong with making games because you love games. That is fantastic. I'm delighted to hear that. My job is to help you decide when you're ready to make that a commercial proposition, namely you're going to get people who are going to spend their hard-earned money on your game that aren't your friends. You have to have a different mindset. And that's not me being kind of a corporate guy, it's not me being an evil guy with a twirling moustache. Oh, yes, but actually I do believe monetization can make games better. I do believe that making a game that's focused on an audience that's not you means you're a grown-up. Means you're actually paying attention to sort of somebody else wants. Why does that other person want to play your game? If you don't pay attention to that, are you really making a game? Or are you just putting together some code for fun? So, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So this is going to be, as I mentioned, BT, Wireplay, that was one of the earliest online game services 3. I was the GameScope 3. We were the most successful in the world in Java Games era in terms of revenue per user. We were around 9 times revenue per user of Vodafone, Orange, and all the others. So I kind of still dine out on that. People like Ilka Panon and Co still give me hugs when I go to GDC, which is kind of nice. Ilka Panon as in Supercell. So not by name dropping at all. I name drop a lot. Let's go for it.
When you say your stats in Skyrim are 4 out of 5, what's that?
That means I play it extensively and I know how to get the best out of it, but I probably don't pay enough attention to really do the maximum exploits. You know what I mean with how broken Skyrim is.
Yes.
We love Skyrim, but it is broken, and we love it because it's broken. Battle Tokyo is just a genius game, and I just found out a mutual friend of mine knows the guy who made it, and it's going to hopefully make the introduction because I'm a big fan. Counter-Strike, I saved. Counter-Strike ran out of money. We bought some new computers, they got bought by Valve, therefore it's all me. Okay, maybe not, but it's quite an interesting one for me because 3 of our team got their names in the credits. They were so scared that I'd be upset. They didn't tell me for 10 years they didn't include me. I didn't even know that we were going to get our names in the credits, but I got to say the mickey out of my mates down in Colchester. Our team were based in Martlesham, so at Astra Park, so local-ish. So yes, anyway. Jetpack Collective, we mentioned, I'm a big fan of special effects. I'm also a contributing editor at a game which is Sounds Fancy. It's just an excuse to get me a press pass at GDC. I do actually write computers with it. Anyway, let's get to the plot. I can talk about my book as well. What are we here for? We're here to work out if our games are good. I'm going to do it through 3 things. Thing 1 is, what is your direction? So just internally, what are you doing? Secondly, data. Thirdly, thinking about how to design. So we're going to talk about that. So right, let's talk about that. First thing is think about your direction. So what is success? Almost before you even think about making a game, you need to work out what success looks like to you. Is it about winning the BAFTA? Is it about getting the grant signed off? Because frankly, getting a grant signed off might be enough. If I can do the thing to get the prototype, to show it to somebody, and someone gives me some money out and then go do some other things, that is the success, potentially. Is it about making enough money to be able to buy Notch's apartment in Hollywood? Maybe not. I don't think we're going to get that one. But it might be, I want to change this genre. It might be, I want to add to the vocabulary of games. It might be that I love this genre so much, this is my take on it. And that's okay. But how are you going to measure it? Because if you can come up with 3 things that are really your actual, commonly shared objectives as a team, your chance of validating your game goes up infinitely. Because you give a number to what the outcome has to be. And what that does is not change your game. It means you're no longer looking at a game as I hate pillars, by the way. If anyone likes to design pillars, I apologise, I hate them. Why? Because they're static. I want vectors. If I've got 3 KPIs, and every time I do something, I'm looking at how it will improve my numbers, then I can be more creative. It's not a death of creativity, it's actually providing the framework from within which I am going to be effectively creative. And I think that's a much better way to work than static pillars. I don't want to make a game that happens to have purple pillars of radiant light that give you growth. I don't want that to be my reason to exist. I want the fact that players want to come back tomorrow to be more interested. I want that to be the way I measure my success. Because you're going to have to pivot. You are. It just is the truth. Get over it. And that's okay. That's the fun bit. That's what makes being a game designer brilliant, because our job is not making games, our job is solving problems. As my friend Tycho said. Anyway, what are you making as well? Yeah, so we've decided what our goals are, but then decide what you are making. Actually, are you making a fidget spinner? Are you making, I mean, Buddha was saying hypercasual is dead, I'm not going to go into that debate. But are you making something simple, self-contained, something which has a beginning and an end? You know, define what it is you're doing. Or are you making a lifestyle choice, a hobby for people? The kind of games that I'm trying to make, I want to be closer to the hobby, not necessarily entirely all-encompassing, because things like Netflix exist. Things like World of Warcraft exist. I'm not going to stop you playing those things or enjoying those experiences. But I'm hoping that in my little kind of experience that I've made, you're delighted enough to have that reason to come back. So that's why I choose that kind of game. But what you choose is up to you. And then who? This is what Stuart was implying earlier. Stuart talked about one audience. I think you should think about three. And I'm going to talk a little bit about game design later. And in depth talking about game design, I'm going to talk about three layers. The mechanic, so what we do, how we actually play. The context, things like the purpose and progression of a game. And then finally the metagame. People confuse metagame for context. Metagame is supposed to be above the game. That's what meta is supposed to mean. I'm a bit... You can have your own definition for it. This is my language for it. I like this language because I want to talk about social layers of the game. I want to talk about how people interact. Why should someone watch your game being played by someone else and then still want to play it? That's what I'm thinking about when I think about metagame. What is that moment? So then I'm going to think about, when I'm designing those layers, who's my audience? In this case, could have been he could have been an e-sport contender. Whether it could not, we'll decide. He can't let his mates down. He must play. He plays every day. He thinks the game needs more guns. More guns. We kind of know who this person is. I just made him up. He's hypothetical. It's okay to start off with a hypothetical to start with. But when you get data, fill that data in. Define how they think, how they feel, what they do, and what they say. Because they are not you. If they're you, you've just made an audience of one. Are you making a game for one person? Or are you making a game that you're going to have millions of people, or tens of thousands of people playing? Because if you want 10,000 people playing, you need to define an audience where you have a bit of a perspective. You can look at them and understand them. So think about the layers of the game, you're going to find you're going to be more effective. So this is how we validate our ideas, even before we make the game. So I mentioned design thinking. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So I talked about these layers. It's kind of a wheel, but I've not drawn it as a wheel, so someday I'm going to get someone who's good at art, because I am not, to turn this into something pretty that's easier to understand. But at the centre, we all know a game is designed by a start condition, a challenge, a resolution, and a reward. Nice and easy, yeah? Where's the emotion? Seriously, do we get emotional about games? Do we get engaged with them? Do we change our psychology as play? Well, where is that in the classical way we look at game design? Well, for me, we all know about everyone know about Csikszentmihalyi? I probably pronounced that murdered pronunciation of his name. But Csikszentmihalyi, we know about flow. Flow might be more common, and anyone? Yeah, good. If you know what flow is, you're not that. It's not fair. But anyway. So, if you think about relief and frustration, perfect position we want to get in is this state that we're moving between these modes. We're never quite hitting frustration, we're never quite getting relief, kind of getting both of those things. We want that feeling that we need that sawtooth mentality. In fact, I forgot the name of the guy. A guy I know from Wooga did a talk about Jelly Splash. He talks about the FU moment. Getting polite, I know someone was wearing glasses, but I don't know how responsive and responsible I'll be. I'll get probably looking staring at me if I start swearing. But the FU moment, you know that moment where you go, and then you succeed, and it's yes! You feel awesome. You only feel awesome if you have the FU moment. We need to create that in our startup. Look, what is the start experience of your game? How does that then move to a challenge? How does that take you from relief to frustration, but still leaving you anticipating the excitement of the experience? And then you go down to resolution. You resolve it. Fantastic. But the act of resolving it should still be tense. There needs to be a fear of missing out. And then we move on to reward. But the reward, if your reward gives you everything, guess what we do? We stop playing. So we have to keep our rewards in the fear of missing out. So hopefully what I'm getting across, when we're designing games, we're not designing a beginning, a middle, an end. We're designing a system. We're designing a flow. We're designing an experience. And the emotion of the player is as important as the mechanics that we're building. And that goes with the purpose, progression, optimization, you probably can't read that in life, and narrative. I think it's narrative, those chunks of knowledge of the game story as being part of the payoff, they're kind of like a reward. And similarly, when we start talking about the way the player experiences the game, there's abstractly from the game itself, the lifestyle bit, right? How many people play games extensively on their phone in landscape? Almost nobody. And yet, how many games do you still see in landscape mode? Because we're used to landscape. That's the best way to just do it. Yeah, no problem. People stop playing. Have you tried holding your phone? Just try holding your phone like that for an hour. It ain't happening. So, I mean, thinking about that also, what is the most common lifestyle moment for playing a game on the phone? Anyone?
On the bus. On the loo.
That's on the loo.
On the bus, on the loo.
On the bus. I didn't know they did this at bus. Yeah, I'm happy to say that. But then, yeah, that's a classic one. But when I go play on PC, I play it differently, don't I? Because I'm going to go up to my room or whatever. I mean, if I've got a laptop, maybe I go to a table somewhere. But I know for me, if I'm going to play on my PC, I'm going upstairs. I'm hiding myself away from the rest of the family. If I'm playing on a console, everyone else is basically watching YouTube on their phones, and I've taken over the big TV. That's my house. Yes, I know, they're very forgiving of me. I'm the only person who uses the big TV nowadays. But the point is that understanding collaboration, cooperation, understanding the zeitgeist that's created because the experience is so cool. Why would somebody actually pay attention? Just going to check out the Paul about the Italian, which I haven't. Yay. Cool. So thinking about the experience, thinking about design, this is a process of validation. So we can validate our experience does those things. Extensibility. I'm not going to spend too much on this because this is the longer version of the talk. I go into this in more detail. How does your individual items of play, how can that get reused through power-ups, through upgrades, through leveling, through skill, through time? If we just play with mechanic, we just do a new mechanic each time, that is the worst thing you could possibly do because you're going to have to build every single thing a player does. I'd rather build a system and have variables that lets people do interesting things using that mechanic. And this isn't just about live ops games. My son used to be really into My Sims Agents back on the Wii. Had a magnificent reusable set of component-based tests you could do to solve clues in the game. Brilliant game, a complete product. So the same thing applies in your product. Suitability of the art. Does your art suit your IP? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about the colour scheme and how it works, how does it differentiate? The economy of the game, even if you're still, again, this product can still have this. Skyrim is broken because it hasn't got one of these. It didn't sit down and work out how the input of XP, because our source of XP being through play, then goes into the sink of that, and then that does progression, and that then deals with how understanding the six and source of your game. You've got to do that. If you don't do that, you can't work out monetization, you can't work out long-term retention, you can't work out basically the kind of physics of the environment. Now, all of this so far has been, how do I think about my game myself? Yeah? We all make sense? So how do I think about my game myself? So as a company, we've got these objectives. As a designer, we've got these tools that we're going to use to engage and sustain the play. Are they going to really work? Well, the fact is that all of that's great, but it doesn't work until you start putting data. And even to this day, we're seeing people not doing playtesting properly. They get their mates to come and play, and their mates tell them how great their game is, because your mate doesn't want to tell you that your game is shit. Your mate doesn't want to make you feel upset about it. Your mate might actually tell you your game is terrible when it's not, because he wants to give you some advice, because he wants to show how clever he is about understanding games, even though he's never done a game design course in his life. You know, she might have a particularly good insight into a particular way of doing a game that that particular friend likes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're representative of your audience. So let's get some data. There's lots of different ways of doing data. Some of these might be interesting to you or not. Others, essentially, you know, maybe new. So, Steam Spy. Anyone use Steam Spy? Yeah. Steam Spy has some snags, shall we say. It used to be great. Then Steam changed the way they did things. Now, they're having to work out, of the people who got the free bit during the sales thing, how many still have it. So you end up with, if you do a download of all the dates, of all the data, of all the downloads, all the sales, and the average prices, you suddenly see the audience for that game went from like 50,000 to 35,000. I've just lost 15,000 people. Does that mean I've lost, you know, £100,000? Probably not. But if you're trying to build a business model for what a game can achieve, I've got no idea. So there are some snags, even things like, I can't see Apani on here. I thought I had Apani. You've got Apani, game finding with this to a certain extent, and also there's that Topia, but there are others, which I haven't sensitized as well. They will provide you with data which is based on the games that are plugged into their systems and their ranking, and they will interpret what that game will achieve based on ranking. Same thing as things I was doing, by the way. Because what it means is all the data is wrong, but it's the best data we've got. So if you're trying to work out the size of a market, you're having to rely on systems which are themselves abstracted. And yet, that is the only information you can give to an investor to say, I believe this game is going to achieve this much money. It's not the only way, actually. We'll get into that in a bit. But it is a key way that a lot of people have historically done it. Here in front of you, you have something called Reflections, which is a reasonably inexpensive way to do it. It was about £200 a month. When I say reasonably inexpensive, it's better than the 40 grand they're now charging for the same skill set. Literally, if I want to do the same thing in front of you today, I have to pay 40 grand a year. Now, okay, that's a particular extreme because they happen to have not designed their billing system and the levels and tiers of their offering to suit my kind of company. So it's not, I'm not having a go at game refinery, it's nothing for game refinery. Don't take this as an attack on them. But it just shows the challenge that indie developers and indie publishers have to get decent data. Then on top of that, we've got things like Newzoo, which tells you what the market size is. Apparently we're having a year of decline. Everyone's telling us how much a year of decline. Well, I think something like decline. I can't remember exactly what the numbers are. But we're talking about approximately $200 billion industry. In the UK, something like $8 billion, someone will correct me, I'm sure. That's useful, especially if you're sharing with external people. The games industry is serious. It wasn't the 3 million, I know. I'm picking on Stuart, he said 3 million. He meant 3 billion. It wasn't what he meant, but I like to take the mickey because he's my mate. So, anyway, the point is, understand we are in a serious industry. That actually, games has been more revenue than music and movies combined for about a decade. And during the pandemic, I think, don't quote me, I believe we might have actually beat home entertainment, music and movies combined. That's how serious we are as an industry. We are the main leading factor of the creative industry in the UK for digital. That's incredible. And that's why when they talked about investing in the creative sectors, they give something like 50, was it, how many million was it? It was like 50 million or something, we got about 8, and film got the rest. I'm not bitter. It was a big improvement for us. I'm not complaining, but it does show that we're still a problem outside. Anyway, back to the point. We're validating these types of data. What on earth is Antidote and Playtest Cloud? These are tools which allow me to do user testing through a third party, online, where I don't influence the outcome because I'm watching what other people are using on the platform. They're really powerful, they're relatively cheap, somewhere between £200 and £600 per test for something like 4 to 10 people. Now that doesn't sound like a lot of people, but you're getting video of them playing, you're getting surveys, you're getting what's the most important number, which is the Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score is, would you recommend to a friend, basically? But they're clever about it. So if you say to somebody, did you like playing the game? They're going to say yes. If you say to someone, would you play again? They may or may not say yes, whether or not they need it. If you have said to them, did you like playing it? Would you play it again? And then you ask them, would you recommend to a friend? Suddenly they're honest. They are much more likely to be honest if you ask the questions in that order, and actually that gives you a much better indication because you've given them permission to not lie. Because they don't want to upset anybody. Nobody wants to upset people. Or they do, that's a different thing. But they're more likely to be honest either way, because would they recommend to a friend? It forces you to think separately. It's not about you anymore, it's about you separating yourself and thinking about other people that you know, that you have a social responsibility for the information you share with them. That forces a step change in their response. So that's what those things are. Kachaba, Steam Data Suite are ways of doing tracking, attribution. I spend money on this campaign, I do Facebook ads, I do TikTok ads, I do social pushes, I do a competition completely unpaid, and I have a code that links tracked by these things. I can now see where I've spent my money, what activity and effort I've put into things, which led to people installing the game. So much so that CDS, which works on Steam, yes, we did that with a particular game, and we found we could get 68 pence plus per install on PC. On PC. And now, don't get me wrong, is it sustainable? We were doing a very small amount of spend, we were doing a test, but how many people will stay, retention is different subject altogether, but it shows that we can actually start being smarter about how we do things. Anyway, what's this got to do with validating your game? It's got a lot to do with it because these are external sources. You will have your own mix of those external sources. Think about how you access data, how you incorporate it into your planning and thinking. That way you can do market comparisons. I can't do these market comparisons anymore because I'm not willing to spend 40k. I'm trying to find ways to do it. Game Analytics just released something called Game Insight we're about to explore. If that works, I'm happy to update people. But the idea is if I can take that data, see what happened in the game. And by the way, you can still get the raw data. You have to pay if you want the revenues, but you can get the ranking. And you can infer revenues from ranking. It's not great, but you can. So you can still see what other games of this genre did in terms of scale, but you may not get the full detail. I was downloading the entire data set and putting it into a business model. Why? Because if I know what the average of 10 games across the number 1 to the number 500, and I take 10 games across that spectrum, and I know what actual numbers they did on each day, and I average them, and the mean of that tells me what my average game of that subgenre can do. If I know what the average mean of a subgenre can do, then I know what my game could do. I know what success looks like. That's why I did that. And I mentioned...
Can you tell us about that graph? I'm kind of curious to know how the revenue jumped up.
Yeah, look at that.
Like, obviously,
I obviously have no idea, but I suspect what we're talking about is probably this period of time that. No, do that. Actually,
it's visible on the other one.
No, you're right. What this probably is there's probably the revenue is on, in fact, this is a really good example of a service-based game, because the revenue is tied to the existing player base, retained player base, not the new player base. So that's, I think, what's going on here. What's interesting is this fallow period here, and how that probably is that fallow period there. So they've probably done a peak of spend, because let's face it, 2019, that's quite late in the lifespan of this game. It's already, 20, so Candy Crush would have been probably 2008, 2009, so it's 10 years in. So I think we've just seen it going flow, and then it's starting to decline. But it's starting to come back up again around September 20 to 21. That's a pandemic kind of period, maybe. Don't quote me, but that's the sort of analysis I would do in a different talk. However, I appreciate you. You're highlighting the right thing. This is what we get on the data suite. Now, I hate this way of presenting it. This drives me nuts. But again, I just download the raw data, put it into a spreadsheet, and try to work out where they've got these peaks of user base that drop to nothing. But that's another thing. If you're doing a business model on Steam, don't put your price, your main price, as your average price. You want to make sure that you're taking into account all the sale price. And if you're going to do a free period, what is the average sale price that you're going to build a business model? So many times someone puts in, I'm going to sell my game for $14.99. Great, but what's the actual average? It's probably going to be close to $7.99. Let's face it, it's reality. We've got 70% off sale for 3 months. Most of the people who are buying the game are going to be buying it in that period. They're going to be waiting to buy the game until it has that sale, assuming you have a payout from it. Anyway, you can tell I've got a lot of information I could probably pull off of all these things. So we've tried to pull together a whole bunch of things saying, here's some external data tools we can use. Now, what do we do about testing this? So I'm a massive believer in using Facebook ads. Yes, I know there's probably Meta and all that kind of stuff. That problem's got worse since Apple removed IDFA, so the ID for advertisers. It is now actually really difficult to get good clarity on your information. Even if you're only focusing on Android. Even if you're focusing on PC. Because the loss of the Apple users, around 30% of gamers, 20% of non-gamers, have approved the use of their data on Apple platforms. Which means that this huge chunk of users no longer provides data. What that means is, if you're going to try and use a subset of users who provide data to understand and predict the behavior of a wider audience, it's going to be wrong, dramatically wrong. So we have to adjust that. We can't, I don't think we can do ads where we can check, do you like the green button or the blue button? I think that era is gone. We used to be able to do that really well, really accurately. I think all we can do now is, do you like this kind of game or do you like this kind of game? And that's it. There's too much variability. We had a situation where a game that was 30 pence cost per install, suddenly in a test became £6. We hadn't changed anything. But there was something going on in the platform we didn't know. Oh, by the way, we fixed it. The next month it was fine. But these aberrations happening to be aware of. But doing the 30-second ad on a platform like Meta can be incredibly useful, especially before you've decided what game you're going to make. Make a test, make an idea, show off what the game is going to be as a 30-second ad. Don't even make the thing, just make the video of the thing. Do 100 of them. Kill 90 of them before you create a trailer for them. Then the 10 that you've got left, maybe run 4 of them. See which 4 have the lowest cost per install. Okay, it's not a cost per install because you're not actually installing anything, but a cost per click to go to a website where they can sign up to a mailing list. No one does that. Just but if you do that, then you've got some data. And you don't have to spend a fortune, you can spend 150 quid over 3 days. Immediately you'll have a cost per click. If you can get under 60, you're doing brilliantly. Nowadays, I'm getting closer to the 80, but that's because pricing has changed. If it's over £2, it's probably dead. If your cost per install is over £4, it's definitely dead. But when I'm doing my initial testing, I haven't optimized the game yet. I may only have a video, but let's say I've got an hour's worth of replay don't get a decent day one retention on that, I'll probably kill the game. But I don't have to have the perfect day one retention before the game is ready. I can use the data that I'm getting about user flow, user journey, etc. to understand how that game could perform. I can make proper judgments. This is the one that I'm really interested in. Now, we're a bit aggressive because we're trying to get games where in a month, I spend a certain amount of money in that month, the player base spends a certain amount of money. If I happen to hit 120% of the money I spent as the money I get back, I can spend that money again. Pretty obvious. It's not going to make you profit at that stage, or it might. But the thing is, as time goes on, as you do that continuously, you're building up retained users, and retained users are typically higher density paying users in the kind of games that I make. So this is very much focused around a free-to-play model. So this may not be appropriate if you're making a pay-up-front game, but the thinking about it still makes sense. Especially if you have a portfolio of games. A lot of the service-based mindset, even if you're making a set of products, what you should be thinking about is how you service your community, how your brand is being built, how effective you are building an audience, not just a bunch of players. And that's where thinking like this, return on advertising, can be hugely useful. And frankly, even if you're making a product, you want to get more money in than you spend trying to get users. Pretty obvious. Anyway, I won't bore you with the numbers. These are just our kind of finger in the airs. We change these regularly because data changes. Right, so thinking about time. So what I'm going to do now is just tell you what we do as a publisher. So when a game is submitted to us, this is how we review it. This is logistically how we actually review it. And we only submit games if we've got a living game. We get so many submissions, we've now had to say only living games, so basically only games have got a long-term game. But the same principles should hopefully help you think about your game if you're trying to evaluate it. Again, use as much data as possible, but this is the model that we use to assess the game. So, is there a clearly targetable audience? And can you find them? Can you actually message them? Can you send write a story and it will get read? Can you put an ad and have the right criteria so that we're just sort of experimenting with TikTok for this testing process at the moment. Fascinating. It's a little bit more expensive in terms of cost per user, but still really interesting. When you're looking at an audience that spends 90 minutes in an hour, that's hard to ignore, isn't it? Anyway, the point is, can you find them? Where are they? Who are they? We talked about who the audiences are. Is the IP you're making actually relevant to the subgenre? There's a lot of things about taking peanut butter genre and jam genre and assuming that PB&J sandwich genre will be brilliant. Well, it can be brilliant, but it can also suck. And yeah, you end up with an audience that genuinely doesn't know what it is they're tasting. If it's out of their culture. Has it got the potential to scale? Is there an elephant in the room? So if you're trying to make an AR game to my cost, I know, Pokemon Go exists. Everyone's going to be playing Pokemon Go. They're not going to be playing your AR game. No matter how much I like AR games, no one's playing your AR game. And even now, Pokemon Go is not an AR game. But people think it is. And they still don't play AR games as a result. Does your game have a potential scale? Scale matters. Because if you can't scale, you can't get your money back for making the game. Does it have a competitive mechanic? Is it extensible? Is it got a sense of purpose? This is the one that really gets me. People tell me they've got a living game. Where's your purpose of progression? Why should I come back tomorrow? Because it's a good game? No, not good enough. You need a sense of purpose of progression. Does it fit the lifestyle of the mode of use, the devices? Have you thought about how the device affects the way you play? Is the controller getting in the way of the experience? Because controllers are insanely stupid things to use. But we're used to, is it compelling social? The number of people forget social elements. Fortnite makes money not because of anything other than that people care that other people can see that they're wearing cool outfits. I don't even get to see the cool outfit. Monetisation design, this is one of my favourite bits, but people forget that this is design, this is game design. If we let our accountants do this, we end up with Battlefront 2. Do not let an accountant anywhere near your game. Make sure that it's about player value, what people care about. Player utility, what do they care about? And making sure it fits the genre. I mean, I'm trying to find ways to bring ads into Steam. You're going to probably hate me for saying that, but I genuinely believe if I can find the right game and the right fit, a rewarded ad will be amazing. Just think about this, Dark Souls. If I had the choice to watch an ad to have a save point, I'll leave you with that thought. If I had been able to pay $1 for a save point, I would spend thousands in that. Anyway, good use of hypermonetization. I think hypermonetization is good because we should be putting the player first. We shouldn't be locking things behind pound notes. We should be making sure we understand all of the tools available to make games accessible to everybody and enjoyable for everybody, and not like, oh, I can now watch that and is the purchase experience satisfying? Do I feel good? Do I look back at the things I bought and think that was amazing? So that's what we do. We look at those three things and we try to give recommendations to the game, we try to help you understand. But that's how we validate games. And hopefully, what I've shown you is there's stuff you can do. Think about iteration. There's stuff you can prove by testing, by looking at your data. And at the end of the day, it comes down to design. Putting the player first, creating a player experience, and that player, as much as you think it might be you, is not you. Unless you're making it only for your own personal consumption, in which case it's going to be fixed. So that's us, thank you very much. If you're interested, we've got a Discord group where we try and get various others talk to each other about various topics, and there's a whole bunch of stuff on our knowledge base about basically everything you want to know about game dev and never dare to ask. And on that note, any questions? If I've got any time left? There you go, 2 minutes. 2 minutes for questions. Go.
Can you do a full day workshop, please?
Yeah. we actually do an accelerator program. We have built one. There's an internet accelerator that's running in West Yorkshire. Sorry, it's finished running in West Yorkshire. We're talking about doing one in Scotland soon. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people. We do exactly that.
And how do we find out about that?
I will give you some details.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was the first ad I saw, sorry.
How much game do you need to get involved with game testers?
You need 20 minutes of gameplay for the very simplest. You need an hour for any non... if you're going outside Antidote or Playtest Cloud and you're actually doing real people, you need at least an hour replay. You could do more, but
It's funny you said about the Dark Souls idea. How do you feel about the idea of like pay to win?
there is no such thing as pay to win. Pay to win is a broken game.
Yeah.
Basically, if I can pay and win the game, there is no game anymore. That's called gambling. Oh, that's not called gambling. Gambling is a different thing altogether. Gambling is a way of physiologically addicting me to something, which is it's an actual thing that exists in psychology, whereas gaming disorder is not a thing that exists in games. It's something that's been created by the World Health Organization, and I thoroughly disagree with that. I'm being told to shut up now. So, if you want to talk to me later, feel free. Yeah, sorry.